Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Attractions Group podcast. Today is February the 26th, probably when you're listening to this. We got a great episode, Pick Six, lots to talk about there. And then we're going to take you on a long history and an even longer future exploration of universal destinations and experiences. But before we get into that, David, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Clink, how's Central Florida?
Central Florida's good. It's been rainy, I will admit, but I think it was interesting. I woke up this morning and my first check was to see what the Guardians of the Galaxy standby line would be now that the virtual queue is gone. How long are we talking? And
Oh,
it was only 60 minutes.
only.
Yeah. So that's really
It's,
not bad for a ride of that caliber.
it's not. But how early in the day was that? Was it right after the gates opened? Is that during?
It was probably 11:30. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so fairly decent in the day. However, it is February. We're not quite to spring break yet. When does spring break really ratchet up down there?
I'd say all of March 1st to the
Okay,
31st. It's pretty,
all right. And of
pretty
course,
intense.
Easter's really late this year. April 20th might be one of the latest I think I ever remember Easter being.
Yeah, that is super late. Wow.
It is
Holy
super
cow. I
late.
remember in high school, there would be sometimes when the Easter Monday would be like the end of spring break, but that's impossible
Yeah,
this year.
you know, some schools will probably try to make it around that. And then, by the
That's
way,
right.
2 weeks later, school's out.
uh, you know, Before we get into talking about theme parks, I just want to say, as someone who, um, grew up in Cincinnati, Ellie De La Cruz, first two at bats in spring
Oh,
training, he hit home runs right-handed and left-handed.
yes.
Holy moly. Holy moly.
Yeah, as part of me wants to get really excited about that. And as a Reds fan and also as a Bengals fan here in Cincinnati, we're used to, okay. So it's an exciting season coming up. They got I think, a better team than last year. And I think the bar's been set high for them to perform to.
I'm just
We'll see.
saying,
We'll see
book
if they can.
non-refundable tickets to the World Series. I'm buying them. I'm doing it. It's a bad
I
investment, though.
might
All right,
take.
let's get in.
I might buy tickets to the wild card series.
Okay,
Maybe.
all right. Hey, that's good. That's good. Let's get into the pick six, though, starting off with Efteling in the Netherlands. Now, a couple years ago, back in 2022, Efteling announced they were going to be building a relatively small second hotel to their property, 130 rooms, and it was supposed to open up in 2024. Some delays hit. It's kind of slipped back behind a lot of the other big headlines we've been seeing, but it will be opening this summer. So if you're looking to go to Efteling at all, maybe stay on property at that cool new resort. Opening year could be pretty exciting. Not to mention one of their attractions, and the name is escaping me right now, but they have a dark ride in their fairy tale land, which is a beloved theme park land. They're adding a scene, just one scene, to this dark ride, which is, I think, commitment to the theming and the storytelling that you don't see very often. Because how is the return on investment going to look for one scene being added? Are people going to notice? Are people going to come out to experience that one scene? Maybe not, but they're still going to spend the money on it to provide a better experience for their guests, and I
Mhm.
respect that a whole bunch.
I agree. And one of the things I think the European parks do well, even for their regional parks that don't have any IPs attached to their properties, they tend to theme their attractions really well and to be immersive. And they may be surprised just changing one scene, how much it may really improve not just the guest experience, but even the ridership for that ride. You can change
Yeah.
something up that so it's a different experience each time you roll through it. And they may be surprised, and maybe they know a lot more than I do, and they know that it's gonna help improve.
Yeah, and I think there's so much to that. Like ridership on one ride going up maybe disperses your crowd to be a little more even throughout the
Yeah,
park, and just it has kind of a magnified effect when you can create uh basically a new star in your lineup.
I agree, and it refreshes a ride and takes a ride that may have had ridership go down over the couple years and bumps it right back up.
Absolutely.
All right, we got pick six, number two. SeaWorld Orlando launches a Seven Seas edition of Coasters After Dark. This is a limited capacity ticketed event that runs on select nights during the month of March and April. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, it's 4 nights: March 12th, 28th, and April 4th and 11th. And the dates are between 9 o'clock and midnight. It's going to be an event for people to be able to go there and be able to hop on some of the roller coasters that may have the longer lines during the day and be able to get through a number of different attractions that might take you all day to get through and take you 3 hours. Some of their, the attractions that they're advertising being Pipeline, Manta, Journey to Atlantis. Now, take a stop for a moment. Journey to Atlantis. Have you ridden Journey to Atlantis?
Of course.
Now, the first time I rode it, it was 38 degrees out. And of course, you got to know that when you're going to be riding a water ride to get wet. I didn't realize how wet we were going to get, because sometimes you get on those. It's not a log flume; it's bigger than a log flume. But you get on some of those. They say you're going to get wet, and you get misted. No, we got drenched. Yeah. 38 degrees. So anyway, then there's the Kraken, Mako, Icebreaker, Penguin Track, and Infinity Falls. So quite
sounds like just about everything.
Yeah, just all the major attractions that you'd want to get onto. And of course, there's going to be international flavors that they're going to be offering for that, and fan favorite dishes like their fish and chips and mini G. Is it gyros? Euros? What? How do you pronounce that?
I think it's Euros, but I don't know.
Both ways. I've heard the very English gyro.
Right.
I don't even know how to pronounce it, but so and also with this comes a little bit of a clarification, at least from where I sit, of some things that we may be seeing on social media about the 9% surcharge that people are kind of getting a little bit up in arms about this. As we read this, and the article that I have up here, I believe is a news channel that is in Orlando that they're reporting this, that it seems to be that the 9% surcharge is only for this ticketed event. It's not for the normal weeks. It's not during the day. Now, if it is, it's certainly not part of this news story here, but it seems to be that this is only a surcharge that is going to be during this event. So maybe
and they'll still have their 5% surcharge that they started kind of as a COVID relief thing for the park in 2022. Right. That's still there for normal times, but the 9% is not the same as
right.
that was. So pick six, number 3 is kind of just a silly little thing, but Urban Air, the wonderful trampoline park chain, has announced 2 new locations in Las Vegas. If I'm Urban Air, and I'm thinking, where am I going to put my next Urban Air? Vegas is probably not the first city that comes to mind. But, well, I mean, what do you think about this, David? Do you think there will be the market there? Do you think Vegas is becoming a little more family-friendly?
Probably not as family-friendly as they were trying to make it back in the 90s. Because they had all this marketing campaign. It's a new family destination for casinos that people under the age of 18 can't get into. But you got to think that it's getting a little more family friendly and more residential, and having attractions for people that aren't necessarily there for the casinos, because now they have NFL football in Las Vegas, which you're not going to put that if your entire population is just tourists coming in and out. So they definitely have something there for the residents of that area. And I like Major League Baseball. I should know this, but are the A's already officially playing there, or are they still?
Honestly, I like Major League Baseball too, and I don't know, so I can't blame you. But they're moving there as well.
Right. So whether or not they're actually there yet or not, I don't know. I should know that, but I don't. So it would seem to me that if they're making some local attractions for people that are going there, I can't imagine that as a person from Cincinnati, if I'm traveling to Las Vegas, I'm going to try and go to a local family entertainment center. But I mean, we could go out there and possibly want something to do. My thought is that this is more or less for the residents that live there, or maybe they'll have a deal with the resort you're staying at.
Yeah, I think that's 100% right. That's a good perspective on the trampoline parks in Las Vegas. It sounds like a bit of an oxymoron.
Have you been to a trampoline park recently?
Oh, absolutely. So I'm actually a member of Altitude Trampoline Parks.
Okay.
So I used to go like every day after school. Then I broke my ankle and I don't go as much anymore. But last fall, I was there literally 3 days a week.
Really? Now,
Yeah, which is insane for someone who was 18 years old, but I was doing it. So
it's insane for someone who's in their 50s to go. I'll tell you that much. I went to one a couple of years ago, and I was sore for a week. And now, anytime someone talks about wanting to do that, I'm thinking I can think of no better way to land myself on an injured list than to do that. So
yeah, it's
they're fun,
easy to do.
but yeah, but man, my joints were aching for quite a while afterwards.
Yeah.
So here we got pick six, number four. And now this is I like this headline. There's a stolen quasi amusement park carousel figurine has been recovered. Now the interesting part about this is not only necessarily when it happened, but how it was discovered. Now I've looked through. There's a NBC Connecticut news channel has this headline, and it says that a sea monster known as a hippocampus among the carousel enthusiasts was stolen from the park on November 16th, 1985. So, I mean, we're looking back, I mean, it was 40 years ago now. And to even realize that something like that is being, possible being found is number one. Number two is that someone had come across it. They were trying to sell. It doesn't say where they're trying to sell. It could have been eBay. Who knows? But the figurine that was stolen came across an auction site with an asking price of 25,000. Now they've interviewed the person that had the artifact, and it was completely, according to this, was innocent. The person didn't know that what they had was stolen or what the backstory of it was. But and so someone, of course, contacted the guy and said, "Hey, by the way, do you realize this is stolen?" And he wanted to do the right thing, and they said that the historian was unsuspecting and purchased collection from a Circle and Carnival stuff from a warehouse. So apparently, it might have changed hands a number of different times before it got to him. And by that time, someone notices the auction, and oh, that looks like something used to go here. And but good end of the story. A artifact gone for 40 years has been returned.
How about that? That sounds like something that you'd have some crazy family drama about, you know. Well, my dad gave me this awesome carousel figurine, and then I didn't know any better. Thanks, Dad. You know.
Yeah.
So speaking of kind of the Northeast, Skyview, the wonderful, ski lift, sky ride, cable car type attraction at Hershey Park is headed out. It was temporarily closed for the latter part of last year, and the park hadn't said anything. And then randomly in the comments of a Facebook post, they revealed that it will not be opening up next year. There's been no construction as far as like teardown, as far as I can tell, of the ride yet. And I don't know, and neither does anyone because of the casual nature that this was announced, if the plans from Hershey Park are to tear it down before the 2025 opening day or not. I would say they're probably going to, though, but that's just one Floridian's opinion.
Now, a lot of people, these are nostalgic pieces of parks that if you go to visit and you're regular there, usually you want to make sure you hit this ride once or twice. If there's a line for it, you'll hit it the next time. But a sky ride like this is probably not going to cause people to go or not go. But it is a piece of history, I believe, that as they're not building more of them that I'm aware of. So as one keeps going away, another one keeps going away, another keeps going away, it's going to end up being an extinct part of the amusement park experience sooner or later.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think it's a sad thing to see go as a model, just because they're so useful when you're walking around on your feet all day and you need to get from point A to point B. There are different, levels of that. Sometimes they just go in a circle and then it's just a fun ride. But sometimes, like at Cedar Point, you get a good walk down the midway there from that sky ride. Lagoons is the same way. Six Flags Great Adventures is the same way. Very good methods of transportation, as well as being a fun experience. So sad to see it go.
Good.
But I also think good there's a lot of good faith when a park removes a ride. I think it's
Hmm.
sometimes a scary thing to do when you're a park because you're gonna get backlash. No matter what you remove, you're
Right.
gonna get backlash. But they want to expand and to make room for things, and I think there's a lot to be said about that.
Yeah, and I agree. Now, as far as sky rides are concerned, have you ever been on the sky ride? And I don't know, it's named something different, but the sky ride at Busch Gardens in Tampa.
I have not. They just announced, believe it or not, that it would be opening back up because it was closed for a while
Okay.
as a pay per ride attraction.
Oh, interesting. Now,
So
I
yeah,
was on it
it's like
with
$5.
I was on the sky ride with two other guys back in I think it's 2019, 18 or 19, one of the two. First time I'd been on it, or if it has been a while since I'd been on it, and we're three grown men basically, and it seemed like our cart sagged a little more than the others, and for most of it, you're going over space in the park that has nothing but carnivorous animals underneath it, and it could really turn into, okay, if this sky ride stops for any length of time, it's going to send some panic and turn this into a thrill ride, because it's there's at least part of it that, and I don't remember the exact layout of it, but you go over like, oh, the lions down there, whatever the animals were, and thinking, okay, if this thing stops, I'm gonna have a problem, because there's literally nowhere to go except where the animals are. But and maybe they changed some of that layout. Maybe my memory of it is incorrect, but I believe that that's the case. Looking down, thinking, okay, there could be some worst case scenario. I'm gonna have to run. But
That is
yeah,
wonderful. Well, I
that's
think that's part of the experience. Absolutely.
yeah. Well, in dovetailing on that, pick six, number six, the headline from an Austin, Texas website is: the first holographic zoo in the United States is going to stampede into Austin. Now, for my money, that could be a thrill ride in and of itself. It was one time Time Magazine's Best Innovations of 2023, and this is called Zoocade, which was previously available in Australia, China, and Canada. And so now, according to this article, at the Hologram Zoo, you don't just see an elephant; you see a herd of elephants that stampedes towards you, then runs through you. As long as they don't stop and try to nibble, I'm good with that. But it's also is what more way for the public to see and learn about wildlife that doesn't involve keeping animals captive? Is that what the future of zoos are going to be? Is the holographic example, or I know that a lot of zoos are mostly helping rehabilitate animals, more so than having them captive. Sometimes they keep them there because they're not healthy enough to go back out in the wild. But I think I could possibly see more of these exist.
I could definitely see that, especially when you consider climate and how it's not feasible to keep an animal who's needs to live in 100-degree weather on the equator all the
Right.
time in Toronto. So I think it could definitely. I don't think you would see zoos that are holographic, just holographic popping up, but I
Hmm.
think we could see popular zoos that already exist add this in as a component. I could definitely see that taking a foothold.
Definitely an interesting concept, and it doesn't give indication when the oh it's opening Thursdays from, I guess it's already open, and
How
it's
about that?
definitely a yeah, it's a reservation event, that it looks like it is a separate gate from the front gate.
Okay. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, to give it a
Yeah.
test run and make some of your money back. Well, this is a great week to talk about a lot of things in the industry, but there's a bunch of things in the entertainment world that we have not talked about. We've just skimmed, pretended they
Hmm.
don't exist so far, and that's because that's what the rest of the episode is going to be about. We're of course talking about universal destinations and experiences. Holy
It's been
moly.
a it has been a big week for Universal. In some of the announcements they've made and the headlines that popped up. It's not just Epic Universe that's making the splashes now. There's other things that are coming up that a lot of people are aware of, especially if you're enthusiasts, if you're into that space. But wow, it's just been a news dump that that's been it's hit most of the headlines.
Absolutely. So before we kind of talk about the future and some of this super exciting news, let's take people back. Let's remind
Yes.
our listeners of where Universal Destinations and Experiences got its start, which really is a film studio in 1914 in Hollywood. That's where this all started. And the idea of, I think 1919 was the first year they did the studio tour. And with that, in some ways, the movie based theme park was invented before Disneyland. Before we had seen intellectual property at really any park mainstream, we had a studio tour where you could live the movies, as they continue to say today. And eventually we saw that transform into a whole theme park in Universal Studios Hollywood, which opened as kind of a theme park in 1964. Have you been out there to Universal Studios Hollywood?
I have. The last time I was at Universal Hollywood was, I believe, 2004 or 2005. I was out there on business and at a conference, and thought, well, I haven't been here in a while. The thing I remember about it is my goodness, the escalator that just seemed to go on and on forever, that goes up a hillside. But
Iconic escalator.
yeah, so it's been a while, probably 20 years since I've been out there, but it definitely, I think that's probably been twice in my life I've been to Universal Hollywood. Universal Orlando,
Okay.
different story, but
Yeah, same. I've been to Universal Hollywood only once, and I was 5 or 6 years old, so I don't remember much, but I do remember the studio tour being super cool. Did you have a
I,
chance
I
to do the studio tour?
I did the studio tour years ago, and because I had the Back to the Future downtown area, and Hill Valley. Sorry, couldn't think of what the name of the city was. Hill Valley, and I believe, because I think a number of years ago, most of the set burnt down, but they rebuilt some of it. I
Yeah,
might
I
have
think
that
that's right.
information
Yeah,
wrong.
I remember this
So
stuff.
it was after the fire, so it wasn't exactly like it was when they were filming Back to the Future. But yeah, the backlot tour and the old King Kong ride, just it was, among other things, is one of the first studio parks I've ever been to. And so and that's probably back in the 80s when I was there, and then again in 2004, 2005, whichever it was. But very just amazing what bringing that level of the movie experience to life in a theme park environment.
Absolutely. So 9 years after Disneyland opens, Universal Hollywood opens. Then in 1971, which would be 8 years after Universal Hollywood opens, Magic Kingdom opens, and the Orlando theme park scape, boom, is dropped onto the
Mm-hmm.
world. Not for another 19 years do we see the advent of Universal in Orlando. Universal Studios Orlando in 1990, and then Universal's Islands of Adventure opens in 1999. When was your first visit to Universal? Did you ever get to go in those 9 years between the opening of the resort and the opening of Islands of Adventure?
Uh, yes, I'm going to date myself. 1995, spring break for college, went down and went to Universal Studios in Florida. Now that's obviously before the Islands of Adventure, but again, we went back. I think it's 2000. I was leading a youth group at the time, and we did a 2 week trip. Some was in Orlando, some was in Puerto Rico, and part of it was you work hard, study hard, then we play hard. And the playing hard was spending several days at the Universal resorts, and that was back in 2000. Then my wife and I have been back a couple times since then, and I don't know if I could count how many times I've been there, because also now part of a regular visitor to the Orlando Informer events. So
So
I
amazing.
I don't know that I would say that I'm a regular at Universal Orlando, but definitely more visits than maybe the average person from Cincinnati, or
Right.
maybe
Yeah.
not.
Okay. So in the next big step after Islands of Adventure opens and City Walks opens. They opened at the same time. Um,
Hmm.
we see in 2002, Universal Studios Hollywood opens Revenge of the Mummy, and this is a big step because Universal originally had kind of said, we're not going to do this whole roller coaster game. And obviously we had seen it in Orlando, but this is where they break into the real ride based atmosphere in Hollywood and kind of establish themselves as a theme park chain in
Hmm.
some sense. Huge, huge moment. Well, just as that was a huge moment, they also are opening basically at the same time in 2001 their first park outside of the country. Universal Studios Japan in Osaka, what is currently the most visited theme park in Asia, opens in 2001. Battlestar Galactica, all kinds of wonderful attractions there. Hollywood Dream. I need to get out there one day.
Never been.
Yeah, yes, me neither. But that is definitely a top of the bucket list. The biggest change we see from Universal in the history of their company is 2010, Islands of Adventure, the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Everything changes for the company. They'd never
It,
seen attendance, success, anything like this before.
and that was before the, I'll mispronounce it, the Diagon Alley, and that was before it opened up on the other
Yeah,
side. I kind of figured that they went in the opposite direction because the Wizarding World actually opened up while Dueling Dragons was still in operation, didn't it?
yeah, and it became
Okay.
Dragon Challenge, and it was themed to Harry Potter.
Okay.
It's kind of where, for those of you who are young, like me, and never got to go when Dragon Challenge or Dueling Dragons was there, it was where Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure is today. Um, and then in 2014, they do also build the Diagon Alley at the as an expansion to the Wizarding World, and they with that they open the Hogwarts Express to go from park to park. But in between those two, we see a huge step in the history of Universal Destinations, which is the Singapore park opening. Huge distinction to be made though with Universal Studios Singapore compared to all the other parks, and that's that it is owned by a company called the Genting Group, who's a huge casino operator all across the world, primarily in Asia, but all across the world, seriously. And they open on this like resort island in Singapore that seems like a incredible place to go to, and we see a second Universal Park open internationally, albeit not at the dime of Universal Destinations and Experiences. The international expansion continues with the announcement of Universal Studios Beijing in 2017, which is announced to be Universal's largest park. It opened in two phases. Phase one opened in 2021. Phase two, not done yet. So that means, on top of all of the exciting things we're going to talk about in a second, there's
Hmm.
also talks and works being done on Universal Studios Beijing Phase 2. Obviously, Epic Universe gets announced, is opening in 2025. Much to discuss there. So let's start digging in. Let's start digging in and talk about a little bit of why Epic Universe has been at the forefront of all of this. And I think the chief reason among that is when it was announced.
When
COVID
was it?
obviously slowed.
Right.
Yeah, it was in 2019 was when this
It,
was announced.
was it announced in 2019 or was it announced because construction was supposed to start in 2020, and then the project itself was called off, as I recall. It was called off and didn't come back online until 2022, maybe. I don't know if they had plans to continue, if they had always had plans just to have a extended pause and start back up. But to the average person going by, it seemed like it was a dead project. It wasn't going to go anywhere.
It sure did.
But
And
and
how,
then
I
when it
mean,
was announced to come
another thing,
back,
where would they have been getting the money from to keep building a huge project like that during
mhm.
a time when no one can travel and no one can be close together like you need to be to experience Diagon Alley?
And COVID is such just a dumb. I'm sorry, just a dumb time to be alive, because it really seemed like every decision people made or in operations was making the wrong decisions, because there's a first initial COVID scare, and then you went through all of 2020, and in a lot of parks, most of the parks didn't reopen. A Disney in California took over a year to reopen. Disney in Florida didn't open until I think it was July of 2020. Universal may have opened a few weeks earlier than that, but not by much. And at that time, you had to social distance. You had to be 6 feet apart from each other. People running around making sure you had your mask up. And then things started to tail off, and people were returning back. And all of a sudden, you come into January of 2022, and COVID spiked up again. Whereas I think that's where it was bad in 2020 and was kind of at a pool level for most of 2021, and then of course 2022 comes, and then it's all back to, okay, are we ever going to get back to what is normal, and whatever normal looks like. But it was, I don't know if Universal knew they were going to reintroduce this, or if it just was indefinitely shelved until they thought that, well, this is going to be behind us, which it finally did. It seemed like it spiked out of nowhere in 2022, and then all of a sudden, as fast as it went up, it came back down. But
Yeah,
no one
and
knew
it's
no one knew what
just
was going
so
to happen.
tough because how would they know what was going to happen? How would people make the right
Right.
decisions? This is a once in a lifetime thing for so many, hopefully, knock on wood. And it's not, when you go to business school, they don't tell you, well, if there's a pandemic, then, X, Y, and Z.
That's not in the textbook.
Right. Yeah, no. So I think another reason why Epic Universe is getting such, you know, all the attention that it deserves, in when maybe some of these other parks are not, is the attendance to, I wrote this down so I would get this right. The attendance to Universal Orlando last year was a 21 million.
Is that both parks together
Both
or
both
individually?
parks together.
Okay.
Yeah. 21 million visitors to the Universal Orlando Resort, both parks. Hollywood, for some comparison, was at 8 million. Universal Hollywood was at 8 million. And the next closest Universal resort worldwide was Japan at 16 million. So when the attendance is just so much greater and you're adding in a project the size of Epic Universe, who knows where this could potentially go? Not to
Yeah.
mention that it is in some ways competing more directly with, the mouse down I-4.
The mouse down I-4. Yeah, and one of the concerns I have is with this coming up, it's probably not founded, but being familiar with that whole iDrive Universal Boulevard corridor there, I can't in my head wrap around what this is going to do to the traffic patterns and people going from park to park. At least on Disney, you have a sort of a captive area where it's not part of the public. If you're in the Disney property, you're not going to any destinations on I-4. You're already off I-4. Well, as far as Universal is concerned, you have International Drive, Universal Boulevard, and Kirkland Road Drive, whatever it's called. Those are all public streets, and just trying to figure out, okay, they're not going to have a train that goes from park to park, and I'm not sure how that would even look. They'd have to get it way above the ground. But is it going to be I assume it's going to be a bunch of buses going back and forth, and how is that going to work with all the traffic? And there's going to be dedicated lanes, dedicated roads, just to try to figure out what all that looks like. And is it going to be, because it's getting down there also to where the convention center is, which there can be different times during the year where they have giant conventions, and that's going to tie up a lot of traffic. So in my head, the logistics of that, I'm sure they've got all that figured out, and it won't be nearly as bad as I can visualize in my head. But just trying to wrap my head around what does all this look like, because there's 21 million people over here, and this park didn't have the land constraints that the other two parks had, to put a big attraction and you had to tear this one down. This one here is not unlimited land, but definitely a lot more than they had before, which it's probably going to have as many people go to Epic Universe per year as what the other two did together.
I would absolutely believe that as a number. So
Mhm.
yeah, it is crazy. And I do think that the roads, they are prepared. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but they do. And I'm excited to drive it, I guess, which is kind of wild. But they have that, if you've seen pictures of that big circular roundabout they're doing that's kind of above the ground, they said they want it to be like a local staple. So they're definitely prepared to deal with the traffic patterns, but like the way Disney has done it and set the standard for dealing with traffic is a high bar.
It is, but to be fair, all that land was bought before people even knew it was happening, so they had the space to do it.
They did. Yeah,
And
that's a great point.
Universal has to deal with what's already been. They're set back the road a little bit, but they still have to deal with pre-existing tourist traffic.
Right. So, Epic Universe, as exciting as it is, as kind of the most important as it is, I want to push past it and talk about the not so far away, but marginally further future for Universal destinations and experiences than Epic Universe,
Mm-hmm.
which will start on August 14th. That is the announced opening day for Universal Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas. 3.6 acre
Right.
horror year-round park supposedly will grab a lot of the Hollywood Horror Nights fanatics that exist and
Mm-hmm.
give them a place to go in April when they want to experience some
They want to get their
scares.
Halloween fix.
Exactly. Why not? I like it. So
Yeah.
I think the most exciting part about this, and tell me what you think about this, David, is it's 3.6 acres. They could build one of these in anywhere. I mean, the 3.6 acres is not much to, you could put one of these on Navy Pier in Chicago.
Yeah. It's definitely a bite-sized place that they could take and replicate in other areas, and it's probably what the market in Las Vegas could possibly be their test market to see what they could do theoretically in all these places. I would be shocked if something like that wouldn't come to a place like Chicago, because Chicago's definitely a slower pace than what New York is. I don't know in New York where you'd even put that, or New York City anyway. But if for Chicago, I wouldn't be surprised if something like this wouldn't come up in that area.
So, do you think Vegas is a good, let's call it their test run? Do you think Vegas is a good place to do the test run of the horror park?
I think so because you get a good number of people come through there for tourism through the casinos, and then also there's got to be a significant local presence there because they're having some things that only get installed for people that live in certain places, and it's not horribly far from Los Angeles. I think it's what 4 hours, a 4 hour drive.
I think it's less, honestly. I'm not sure, but I think, yeah, it's not horribly far at all.
And there isn't a train access, high speed rail between Los Angeles and Las Vegas yet. I do believe that there's something I read a couple weeks ago that I believe they're opening one in 2026.
Yeah,
So
this is the
Los
plan,
Angeles
yeah.
definitely yeah, is it? I don't remember the exact dates of it, but Los Angeles is a big tourist center, big population center, and of course San Diego's not too far from there also. So if you get those high speed railways and you can get people to and from that large area to Las Vegas, it'll definitely open up a lot of tourism opportunities in Las Vegas. That's already a destination.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I mean, that's brilliant thinking. And I think the fact that they're able to pull from Los Angeles, let's call it easily,
Yeah,
is what makes it such a great place to do a test run. You have built-in tourism because you're in Las Vegas, but also you have the idea that it's a lot harder to get people to travel 500 miles to visit this new
hmm
kind of experience than it is to get them to go from LA to Vegas. So I think it's
right.
a brilliant move on behalf of
Yeah,
Universal
and
to put it there.
it's not a terrible drive. I think it's 4 hours, and maybe we could and when Don's on the show in a couple weeks, he could talk to the Bucky's people about putting something on the interstate between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. That's probably what they would need.
Yeah, that's all you need. You need one Bucky's. I
Yeah,
think for every
one
Bucky's
Bucky,
you pass,
maybe
your
two.
drive gets 1 hour shorter.
Exactly, because they start advertising 100 miles before you get there.
That's right. So at the same time as we saw the Horror Unleashed announcement, we saw the announcement for probably the thing in the world that I'm the most excited about right now, which is the Universal Kids Resort in Frisco, Texas.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, interestingly, ABC 8 in Houston, I think is a Houston station. Dallas, I'm sorry. Dallas has an article on that, and they came out today. Like I said earlier in the show, it was a big week for announcements coming out of Universal because now they released or revealed several themed areas that's going to be in the park. So that's definitely Texas is starting to get a lot of flavor for the theme parks. A lot of IPs arriving there. Maybe someday rival what comes out of Florida.
Sure thing. So I saw Shrek, SpongeBob, Puss in Boots,
Hmm.
Minions, Jurassic World, and Trolls are the 6 announced areas for the kids resort. A SpongeBob area? Are you kidding? I'm going right now. I'm walking if I have to. But also to
Shrek and Puss in Boots, is that two different areas because they're part of the same movie franchise?
this
Is
is a
it two
great
different
point.
areas?
It is 2 different areas. Yeah. Which I
Okay.
think makes a lot more sense from the perspective of the company, considering the unbelievable success of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, the 2023 December released super mega hit. I'm a huge animated movies fan, so I feel that I mean it was a top animated movie of the 2020s cemented already. So yeah, it was makes some sense, but a little surprising. 300 room hotel announced with it. It's kind of built over the main gate. If you've been to Kings Island, you know, they have that like kind of conference space, office space, and
Yeah.
banquet center above the main gate. It's like that, but it's a whole hotel, 5-story hotel above the main entrance. Seems like it will be very colorful and fun, of course.
Hmm.
300 rooms is not a ton of space, admittedly.
It's not.
Yeah, and that's they've been asked a few times, like, why'd you do 300 rooms and no more? But the park's not as big as what we've seen from Universal and other places. The
Yeah.
park is it's large, but
Nine,
it's
97 acres.
comparable to, yeah, like Universal Studios Florida or Islands of Adventure,
Hmm.
not the whole resort put together. So I think 300 rooms will get the job done because you're in Dallas. There's not a shortage of places to stay.
Right. It definitely has tourist infrastructure, but if you look at 300 rooms, and if you figure that each room can sleep four people, and even if it does max out four people, that's 1,200 people, which is not I mean, it's for a new park coming online. I can't imagine that they'll stop at that, but who knows? Maybe as part of the resort area, they may have plans for other hotels. But to have 1,200 people on property is a good start. There's definitely infrastructure around Dallas that can house other people. In Dallas Fort Worth, the area is definitely a large population center, so it could more than support something like this.
So, what do you think about the same question we just asked for Hollywood, but for the horror park and being chosen to be put in Vegas? What do you think about that question for the kids resort? Why do you think
For
Dallas was selected, and do you think that's going to be a good place for this kids resort to be located?
I've been to Dallas a couple times. Honestly, I don't know that I have not been to Dallas as many times as I've been to Las Vegas, so I'd have a little more of an opinion of Las Vegas. I've been to Dallas on business a couple times. Went by the South Fork Ranch for Dallas, for those of you who remember that show. But I don't know that I know enough about the Dallas Fort Worth demographics to have a huge opinion on that. It's a large population center, has at least two airports. So there might be another one over in Fort Worth, but I think DFW is services both population centers. So it's definitely a large population area. It can more than support a 97-acre park on its own. Is it going to spawn the tourism to come in? Probably. You're not going to just get the kids with the area known as for Shrek. You're going to get people in my generation and the millennial generation above that remember that movie franchise. So it's definitely going to draw some people in. I think that there's going to need to be some more theme park infrastructure to draw more in. I don't know that one park is going to do the trick on that, but the time will tell.
So I
It's
think
definitely going to be a
personally,
destination park.
for sure, yeah, I think they're they're kind of building a Cedar Point style hybrid between a true destination park like Walt Disney World and a regional park like Carowinds, where there's going to be a lot of people who are traveling from Houston and Austin and San Antonio and Oklahoma City to go to these parks. But I don't know that there's going to
Mhm.
be as many people traveling from Seattle or Paris, so let's say to go to these parks, then do go to like Walt Disney World or the Orlando parks right now. But I agree. I mean, I think if there's some more competition built up in northern Dallas area, that we could absolutely start to see that tourism
Yeah.
rifle floor.
So, but in right in between that, between Dallas and Fort Worth, in Arlington, is Six Flags Over Texas. So, I mean, there is some theme park. There's theme park infrastructure in town. I think you could say that Six Flags Over Texas is a local or regional park that's going to draw a lot of people from the Dallas Fort Worth area. And I seem to think that you're going to have some overlap of people that will go to the Universal Park, and they'll be the people that fly into whichever airport and attend that. I don't. There's a difference between a regional park and a destination park, and the Universal Park will definitely be destination, so it's going to pull people from all over the country. Six Flags Over Texas, strong park in of itself. I don't know that you're going to get the tourists from New York coming down there to go specifically Six Flags Over Texas, like you'd have people coming down specifically for Universal.
But I think it'll absolutely be benefited by the
Yes,
influx of people coming to Universal.
they'll definitely benefit. There'll definitely be some overlap and mutual benefits for both sides.
Not to mention, so I as a hospitality student who applied to like 24, that's the actual number, college's last college application season. The University of North Texas in Denton, very close to Frisco,
Hmm.
is one of the schools I applied to because they have a hospitality program, and I would be interested to see if they kind of adapt to this. The University of North Texas, if they say this is becoming a little bit of a theme park area, let's make something happen with that. But I mean, that is above. I'm not an education professional by any means, but I think there might be something there.
Not an education professional, but you play one on TV.
That's right. That's right. Okay, so the Texas Park is a kids resort. It has some
Hmm.
brilliant pieces of intellectual property associated with it, if you ask me. Do you think that it is Universal's most direct competition with Walt Disney World?
From an IP standpoint, probably. Uh, well, yes and no, because really, if they're trying to be a direct competition with Disney, their direct competition with Disney is going to be in Orlando. This is Texas. Disney does not have a presence in Texas, so they kind of run unopposed. Would Disney take that as a shot across the bow and try to plant a place in the Dallas Fort Worth area? Maybe.
I hope
Um,
so.
give more destinations to go to. So I don't know. This would be definitely the shot to come out and try to do something completely unique in an area that is not touched by Disney.
So construction on the park is going well. If you look, you can see the
Hmm.
hotel I'm talking about. If you look at some overhead photos, you can see the track or trough, I guess, being dug out for the Minions themed river raft adventure. Lots of great stuff in Texas. Opening in 2026, which is an official announcement. I mean, there's no date, but it is Universal has said it'll be open in 2026. So that's
Hmm.
extremely exciting. But even bigger than Texas, even bigger than Las Vegas, even bigger than Epic Universe, maybe, is Universal Studios Great Britain. So
That's right.
it's been rumored for a while. Universal bought a bunch of land in Great Britain. That's not a rumor, that happened. Then it kind of started becoming real at light speed. And the rumors were when no one knew, hey, is this just Universal buying land and being smart about the future, or are they planning on getting something going now? Well, on February 6th, they trademarked the name for Universal Studios. They trademarked that in the United
Hmm.
Kingdom. So to me, that speaks to this being pretty real and getting pretty real.
Yeah.
We also know that the discussions between Universal Destinations and Experiences and Chris Bryan, the uh, tourism minister in the UK, is going well. According to he says he expects it to transform British tourism, and he says they're going well, but he can't speak to when the talks will conclude or anything of that nature. Nothing's confirmed, but things are looking up in a way that they have not yet for the Universal Great Britain resort.
Mm-hmm. It looks like 470 plus acres they're looking at. Now, you
Which
say there's
is
nothing official about
humongous.
that. It is huge. You say there's nothing official about that, but there is a website, universalukproject.co.uk, which is live. But the headline on it is Exploring a Potential Theme Park and Resort Project. So it's
Exactly.
definitely something that I don't know if they've already purchased the land for it, but
They
it's definitely
have,
something
yes.
that they are. Okay, so it could be more real than we think, or closer.
Absolutely, it could. So, one of the things I think is so fascinating about this is Universal has made an unbelievable amount of money off of the Wizarding World, off of J.K.
Hmm.
Rowling's Harry
Hmm.
Potter, off of those Warner Brothers movies. Unbelievable success there. There is nowhere in the world that has a bigger Harry Potter fan base than England.
Taking it back home.
I mean, literally, this is like if you built a
Yeah.
Star Wars park in England, and then it got popular and people loved it, and then you did one in Florida, and then it would blow up. It's
Hmm.
unbelievable potential for what the Harry Potter world, what the Wizarding World area in this new resort might look like. I mean, we've seen them dedicate space and a lot of it to the Wizarding World before. Do you think we'll see more of that I mean, this is speculation, but do you think we'll see a bigger Wizarding World area because it's in the UK? Or do you think they're thinking, well, we have Wizarding Worlds all over. We don't want to discredit them by building a big main site one in the UK?
I think it could be, this is my opinion, that it would be something larger than we see in Florida, because this opens up the entire European market, as well as some of the Middle Eastern and Asian market, to this park. Whereas a flight to Florida from Germany might be a little unreachable for some people in that part of Europe, but the UK is pretty accessible. So you'll have all of excuse me, all of Europe now can access this, whereas the flight to the United States might be out of reach. But also, you have people in the United States that if they realize that there's a bigger Harry Potter world over across the pond, as it were, you're going to get people coming from the east and the west to come experience it in
So
England. In yeah,
yeah, in its native land. One of the things I think is so exciting about this for British coaster enthusiasts is the fact, we'll just call it what it is, the fact that if this happens, the British tourism market will get shaken up, and that's amazing and everything. But the British theme
it
park,
will.
the British entertainment market is gonna have to respond. Alton Towers, Thorpe Park, Chessington World of Adventure, these parks have to do something. They can't sit back and watch as
Right.
every single person that visited their parks goes to Universal now. I don't know. Do you think that they'll be able to keep up? Obviously, the Universal Park is going to be more of a destination experience, as we've mentioned, and the other parks, Alton Towers, Blackpool Pleasure Beach, Thorpe Park, those are going to be more regional. But the UK is only so big.
Right. I think it's going to be tough for the first year or two, as the local populations come and check it out, check out the new park. But I think over time it's going to go back to not go back to the way it was before, but people will gravitate back to those more local experiences. Because are you going to go to Universal, which is going to have 3-hour lines for whatever attraction, or are you going to go back to one of the more regional parks where you're at, where they're going to have lines, but it may not be 3 hours?
That's a great point. That's a wonderful point. They're going to be stealing up a lot of those long wait times too.
And let's be honest, the European parks do a great job theming their elements without IPs.
They do. I
Obviously, you're
mean,
going to have the Harry Potter
Alton
world
and
that you're going
Thorpe.
to be able to. Yeah, they do very well with that. So, and they do it without intellectual properties to do it with. Universal's going to have the Harry Potter theme and any other IP they'd want out of their catalog, but the regional parks in Europe do a pretty good job on their own.
They sure do. So I see this park from me, from one guy who doesn't know that much. I see this being a lot like Universal's in Beijing, where they have the two phases. They build a park and then they build a city walk with it, like Beijing has done. Beijing has a city walk
Mm-hmm.
too. And then maybe they build a hotel or two. Beijing, when it opened, it had 1,200 rooms, an 800 and a 400 room hotel. I could see something like that. We get one big hotel, maybe one smaller, more deluxe hotel, and then they leave a lot of room for expansion. I think another key point about this, and another way in which this is a lot like Beijing, is Universal on the site map that they had this event at the land because they own the land. They had this
Mm-hmm.
event there where they invited some media down and they showed this site map, and it was very non-specific. It was like potential park area, potential parking lot, potential resort area, and all these things. But one of the things that
Mm-hmm.
was on there was a spot where the public transit system would have a stop. You'd have rail
Right.
going to the parks from it's very close to Bedford, so I'm imagining the rail went to Bedford and then I don't know in the other direction, but that's huge.
It is. In Europe is a lot more progressive as far as concerned with rail traffic as opposed to car traffic.
That's absolutely right. And so maybe it's not as big as I'm thinking because it would be a big deal if they didn't have it over there, but to me that seems like the thing that you have to get right if you're Universal going into that
Mm-hmm.
market. They filed 3 trademarks is one of the things we know. They filed basically you have to file different types of trademarks. So they filed like a theme park trademark that like says no other theme park can have this name. We're going to maybe
Right.
build a theme park that's called Universal Studios. They bought one for their retail merchandise, and you can go on the uk.gov, well, I guess it'd be .uk, but website, and you can see like every specific type of merchandise they might want to sell: sunglasses, hats, beanies, sweatshirts. They filed that patent. They filed the theme park patent. They filed a hotel patent, which isn't that surprising. But they also filed in that amusement park patent a water park patent. What do you think about that?
Interesting.
A Universal Studios water park in the UK.
UK is pretty far above the equator. I wonder if the temperature would be now. Okay, is this an outdoor water park, or are they planning to do one indoors?
We don't
I
know.
don't know the
My
answer to
thought
that.
is it
Okay,
has to be indoor.
I would think so, because I, I I don't know much about the London area. I've never been to London, but from what I've heard from people that go there, even during the summer, it's not like the 80s and 90s that we're used to here. Not that they don't get those temperatures, but if they do, it's a much shorter season than it would be in the traditional seasonal park areas of the United States. So I would guess that it would have to be indoors.
So speaking of shorter seasons, this is something I've thought about for like 4 seconds. So maybe this is wrong, but like Universal Orlando is open year round. Universal Texas
Right.
is going to be open year round. It's in Texas.
Hmm.
Universal Beijing, Singapore, Japan, all open year round. Singapore has like amazing weather. Japan, it gets a little chilly, but like it's open year round. That's how like the schedule works and so forth. So this, if it's not year round, would be Universal's first time not having a year round park. Do you think they can manage the cold weather? Do you think they can manage a January in Bedford?
What does Alton Towers do? Are they seasonal? Or are they
I have no. I will look it up. Let's find out. So the theme park is open from March to November, but the rest of the resort, the hotels, some of the shopping and dining is open year round.
okay?
So maybe I could see it being something like that. What is I don't know this either. What does Disneyland Paris do?
That's a good question.
Disneyland Paris
Yeah,
is open year round. Yes.
it is open year round. I mean, they can have wintertime events, Christmas time events. And another thought as to why or how they would need to have an indoor. I would think an indoor water park, especially if they're going to be doing that. I can't imagine what the season for that. Lower temperatures. When I say lower, I mean more like 50 to 60 longer than what we may see, because you're that far north. You're also going to have colder water in the ocean that blows off the shores.
That's for sure. So I'm sure it's a big part of the type of attractions that they're designing, right? If you have Spider-Man at
I bet.
Universal Orlando, that could be open 365 days a year, right? Well, why not?
Yeah.
Even if in Cincinnati. But if you have, Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, not so much. So I wonder how noticeable the type of attraction construction will be. Maybe if they build a big thrill ride, it will be an indoor one like Mummy or Rock and Roller Coaster.
Maybe, but also in the United States, in the northern states, there are Cedar Fair parks that, well, I guess Six Flags parks that had Winterfest events, and like Kings Island in my backyard, they had a number of the roller coasters were open. The Racer roller coaster and Mystic Timbers were open, and some of the kids roller coasters. So the roller coasters are being built to be able to operate in colder environments. Now, you're not going to want to go on going 100 miles an hour when it's 30 degrees out. There might be a lot of people that would ride it just because of that, but they are being engineered to take colder temperatures or a wider range of temperatures. So
Okay.
they could. You might not want to ride one when it's sleeting out, but it's definitely something they could do outdoors.
This is an interesting thing to consider with the new Universal Great Britain is the weather. So,
Now, I did look up while we were on here, and I think I took it off the screen. But the list here says, as of February 2025, the project is expected to get final approval within the next few weeks. So if it gets approved here in the next couple of weeks, and it says only the Treasury left to sign off on the final on the financial arrangements, sounds like they may already have a plan. And who knows? Once it's approved, let's say that's April 1st. Who knows? April 1st. How long will it be before they start leaking details about that to build the excitement?
yeah,
Now, obviously, still we're a long ways off from an opening, but it didn't take long for Epic Universe details to start leaking out.
not at all. I mean, and Beijing had to deal with COVID too, and they 2017 to 2021, it went from announcement to being open.
Hmm.
So, let's say you take off a year because of COVID being in there. Maybe you don't. Maybe construction was done, it was ready to open in 2020, but still 2017 to 2021, that's, you know, this park could be open before we see the year 2030, 2029, 2028. We could see
Hmm.
a whole new Universal Resort in the world, which would just be
Yeah,
unbelievably exciting.
and it depends on what a lot of that depends on what their regulations are, what their restrictions are, what kind of environmental things they have to take into consideration, and what the infrastructure is around it.
For sure. And just how much of that they've been committed enough to start doing already. If they've
I,
who
I don't
knows
know that they'd
behind
be
the
doing much.
scenes. Yeah, this is
Might
fair.
be having some things on paper, but I can't imagine they're going to spend a lot of money for something that's not approved yet.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that would definitely be a shock. By the way, just to give a little bit of a hand clap to Universal Destinations of Experiences for getting all this done at the same time, we have not mentioned a pretty major piece of theme park news, which is that they just announced the closure of Fast and Furious Supercharged at Universal Studios Hollywood in favor of that new Intamin launch coaster that's been under construction for the past several months, gone literally by the wayside because they have, 4/5 parks under construction right now. If you count that second Beijing park, 5 parks under construction. That's a super exciting addition. I mean, this could be a, Velocicoaster style hit for Universal Hollywood.
Yeah, is there a lot of information out there like layouts? And I'm not familiar with it. Are there things that you can look up online out there?
Yeah, there absolutely are. Coaster fans are very good at making sure there are
Yes.
leaked coaster layouts. So you can look it up and see the plans. It's not the sort of thing that has been much like with Velocicoaster. They're kind of just building it and keeping it a secret from us right now. But when there's a large amount of coaster track somewhere, you can figure out what's going on pretty easily. So crazy that we have this
Yeah.
just as an add-on. Have the the new area that opened at Universal Studios Florida as just an add-on. Whatever is going to be replacing Hollywood Rip Ride Rocket, it's all just an add-on compared to
Hmm.
the whole new parks that we're seeing. What a day to be alive!
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot of news coming out of Universal just this past couple weeks.
For
It's almost hard
sure.
to keep up with.
So yeah, sure is. Holy moly. Well, I don't know. If I was going to be put in a room right now with a button and I could hit the button and I could go to, any of these parks. They could be finished construction and I could go and I
Mhm.
could come back to my normal life afterwards. I think I'm going to the kids resort. I'm going to be so honest with you. I
I
think
think
I'm
so
going.
too. I think so
Really?
too. Yeah, I want to go to the Puss in Boots land to see if it's true to form to how cats operate, and if they have different little plots of cat vomit that you have to dodge.
That would be fascinating if they had that.
I doubt they would, but anyone who's had a cat in the house before would know that there's no rhyme or reason; it just shows up all the time.
Okay.
But
That's
no,
fun.
I
Yeah, in fact,
definitely that would be one I'd want to go to.
yeah, I think so too. Because Epic Universe, we're gonna get to go to. It's soon enough. I can wait. I can wait.
Yeah.
But the kids resort, I'm just up too. I'm way too excited to see what the SpongeBob land would be like. The Minions land. Oh, it's so excited. I'm
Hmm.
riled up. So, is there anything else this week? We've taken our listeners on an adventure of universal destinations and experiences and given a crystal ball into the very bright future therein. Is there anything we're missing? Is there anything you want to mention about parks this week that we haven't gotten to?
Not that wouldn't take us about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes to get through, and we've had a mouthful and a lot of things this week. So
Yeah, we sure have. We'll
save some
save
news
it.
for next week. It's just in the event that it's a slow news week next week.
That's right. That's right. You never know. We might just say there is no news and play gentle jazz piano music if it ever gets to that point.
Might
But
not get too
thanks
many
for
people listening
listening
that will know.
to the
Yeah.
Attractions Group podcast, our episode about universal destinations and experiences, very bright future. David, sign us off.
All right. Well, hope to tune in next week. We have a guest coming on the show. Supposed to have a guest come on the show talking about interactive technologies inside theme parks and give us just a deep dive on the immersive experiences that are coming up and how AI is going to shape some of that, how some parks are already dealing with it, not dealing with it, but using it, and some things that are coming into the future in a technology that literally changes by the day. So with that, we'll sign off. I'm David in Cincinnati.
I'm Cleet in Orlando.
Till next time.